Hey y'all, happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for coming back to the Graduated and Grown podcast. It's Wednesday, therefore, we're back with another episode. If this is your first episode, hello, my name is Ariane. You guys, it's actually kind of hard to introduce myself because I never know exactly what to say, what to capitalize on, but let me just speak off the cuff. So my name is Ariane. I work in digital marketing. I am a recent college grad. I graduated almost 2 years ago, which is crazy. I can't wait for the 2 years post-grad episode, so stay tuned for that. I love all things entertainment, media, creativity. I love reading. I love watching TV. I absolutely love cooking, and I also love complaining about the aspects of being a young adult that sucks, but also talking about the things that I really love that I get to experience since graduating from college. So again, if this is your first time, thank you so much for listening. And for all of my returning listeners, thank you for supporting the podcast. Today, we are talking about work-life balance. We're going to talk about what it is, why it's important, what my work-life balance looks like, what other people's work-life balance looks like, and what you could do to improve it, and so much more. And I just want to say that everyone's work-life balance looks different. And we'll talk about this later in the episode, but my experience probably won't be your experience, and your experience probably won't be my experience. So definitely keep that in mind as I talk about this. And I can only speak about my experience. I can share a little bit of my friends' experiences as well, but this is mainly coming from my point of view. So I know that work-life balance is a very it's a corporate America phrase. I'm not sure if it's used outside of the corporate America space, but that's where I learned about it. And my personal definition of work-life balance would be your ability or the room, either your ability or the room to juggle working a job and being a human being who has a life outside of work, right? And I did a little bit of research before this episode, and this website, I don't know how to say the name correctly. I think it's Qualtrics. They also had a definition, and there it says work-life balance involves the minimization of work-related stress and the establishing of a stable and sustainable way to work while maintaining health and general well-being. Now, their definition is a lot more, it's a lot more thought out, and they have a great definition. I think mine is a little bit, simpler, but I think they're both saying the same thing. Basically, maintaining two different things at the same time. Like I said, work-life balance is totally subjective and can look different for so many different people. For example, I might think that I have a great work-life balance because I'm able to log off of work at 5. But maybe Tangi, she may not get off until 7 p.m. on average on a weeknight, but she might still be able to live her life the way that she wants it, and she thinks that she has a great work-life balance. While me, I'll be like, ooh, 7? Yeah, that's a little too late for me, whether we're in the office or not. But that's her experience. That's what she loves, and this is my experience, and that's what I love. And also for the work-life balance of a 20-something who doesn't have kids like me, it's probably so different from a parent who has a spouse and or kids. And I also feel like the work-life balance of me, a young 20-something who is not married, who doesn't have kids, who doesn't have I have responsibilities, but that is different from the life of a 45-year-old woman who's married and has 3 kids. You know what I mean? Like her work-life balance is going to look probably a lot different from mine. Yeah, so we're going to talk about work-life balance today, and I kind of feel like society in a way almost pressures me a little bit to work past 5 p.m. when I don't want to work past 5 p.m. I mean, I'm sure nobody wants to work past 5, but I have a boundary in place. So we'll get into that in 1 second. But before we get into the meat of this episode, I just want to remind you guys to follow the podcast on Instagram. It's at Graduated and Grown. Be sure to leave a rating for the podcast, 5 stars. And you can also leave a review on Apple. But on Spotify and Apple, you can do the rating. But okay, let's get into this conversation about work-life balance, what it looks like, what can be improved, etc. And as this episode is going by, if you are in the workplace, and I think you could even apply this to school as well, but I want you to answer some of these questions yourself and figure out, what does your work-life balance look like? What do you prioritize more, etc. But okay, let's get into the episode and talk about work-life balance as a 20-something and whether or not I should be working past 5 p.m.
I don't know about you, but I think adulting is hard. Figuring out your love life, finances, friendships, professional life, health, and how to make a freaking doctor's appointment on your own can be so overwhelming sometimes. So, welcome to Graduated and Grow, a podcast that's focused on helping you and me overcome the struggles of adulting. Let's have some fun yet honest conversations about life once you're graduated and grown.
So I feel like I can't talk about work-life balance until I share what my personal work-life balance experience is. I think that I have a great work-life balance experience. Like, it's kind of, I don't want to say it's better than I expected it to be, but it's pretty dang on good. And I know that as I move up in my career, it will probably shift and look totally different from how it is right now. Like, even if I were to get a promotion right now at work, I think that would definitely change my work-life balance. But where it is right now, I think I'm good. And I realize that I come from a privileged situation. I work for a company, specifically, I work on a team that is that prioritizes work-life balance, that honestly does not send emails after 5, after 6, that respects PTO. Like, my team is really, really great. And even my last team was really good with that. Like, I remember one time my VP said, if I send you an email after 6, do not look at it, do not answer it. I'm just getting it out, but I really do not want you to respond. And I really, really like that. And I can't speak for my whole company because I feel like every team, every department has its different dynamics. But from my personal experience, I think work-life balance has definitely been a priority, and I have been enjoying that priority that my teams have put into place. But I think outside of my teams being like flexible with work-life balance, I think, or promoting of work-life balance, I also think I have a couple boundaries in place. I really don't work past 5:30. And again, I think I am new to my career. I'm still growing, I'm still learning. And my role, honestly, at work, because I do a lot of campaign management, a lot of that is working with other people. Most people aren't on at 6 p.m. So it's like a lot of my work really is done at 4:35, you know? And also, like, when I go on a trip, I may like check my email just so I'm not like overwhelmed when I come back. But I'm really not responding to emails when I'm on vacation. Like, I try to create that boundary. And of course, I know it's easier for some, harder for others, but this is just my personal experience. Now, I would be totally remiss if I didn't talk about like the COVID impact of work-life balance, because I think it really changed for a lot of people. And I want to touch on this before we get on there, but a lot of offices are having their people come back into the office soon. My job, I think the date is like April. I don't remember. It's April something. So I'm going to go in occasionally, and that'll be really interesting to see how that really changes my work-life balance, because now I don't have a commute, you know? But when I do have a commute, and it's still fairly short, but there's a difference between, let's say, a 20-minute commute and like me getting out of bed, doing my morning routine, and then sitting on my computer, you know, big difference. So I hope that everything stays the same. I mean, obviously I'm going to have less time in the morning and less time after work, but it might even be worth it just based off of the social interactions and opportunities that come along with being in the office. So we will see about that. But let's talk about how COVID has affected work-life balance. And I want you to think for a second, like, do you think COVID has affected work-life balance for you or for people that you know? And if so, how? My personal answer is yes. I think it's affected some positively and some negatively. And like I said, like, my company is getting ready to send us back. I think, is it 2 days in the office or 3 days? I don't remember like what the standard is. I have a flexible work arrangement, so I don't have to worry about that. But if you didn't get one of those, I think you have to be in the office 3 days a week. So this is going to change for a lot of people. What they experienced for the past 2 years is definitely going to change. Anyway, I think the remote work environment due to COVID has affected people positively, with like the fact that there's no commute. You know, some people have 30-minute commutes to 2-hour commutes. That is, if you have a 2-hour commute, but you've been working from home for the past couple of years, it's going to be really weird adjusting to not having those 2 hours, maybe 4 hours if it's 2 hours each way back. And some people do have really, really long commutes like that. So That's a positive thing for people, like not having to do that annoying commute, having to deal with traffic, having to deal with people, public transportation, etc. Another positive is that people have created like an abbreviated morning routine. I know I have. Since I'm not going out, I don't do as much as I would if I was going into the office. I think another positive is the fact that you're able to see and spend more time with your loved ones, whether that's friends, family, etc., because you're in your own space, you're at home all day. Like when I have family come visit me, like I spend more time with them because I'm at home versus if I was in the office all day. Or if I had kids, like even though it'd probably be a little, meh, having a kid in the background while you're trying to work, I feel like it's also a good opportunity to spend more time with the kids, possibly. But I'm not in that situation, so let me not speak on that. Another positive of being in the work environment with work life balance is I feel like it's giving people more time during the workday to run errands and or do like quick things that they enjoy. So like going for a walk. I love going for a walk during my lunchtime. And one thing I really liked about our headquarters campus that's in the suburbs, we have a nice like walking trail. There's parts that's shaded. You walk near the water. It's really nice. I really enjoyed it as an intern. So sometimes, who knows, maybe I'll drive to our suburban office just to get that experience. 'Cause if I go downtown, then I'll be walking through the city, which is also fine. But it's something serene, like when you're walking through nature. Like it's very, very beautiful. But other things that people do during the day are like maybe going out for lunch at a local restaurant. I know at our suburban headquarters, if you leave for lunch, you may not be able to get a parking spot again. Now, I think with COVID, less people are going to be back in the office. More people are going to be downtown, blah, blah, blah. So it probably will be easier to get a parking spot. But it's more work having to get in your car, drive 10 minutes versus like where I live, I can just walk right out of my apartment, go get some really good Italian food, be back in within 15 minutes, you know? And also, a beautiful thing is you can take a nap during the day. When I first started my job, my lunch breaks were my nap time. I loved it so much. Now, I don't really do that anymore because I think I actually did a couple weeks ago, but I feel like I've been a little bit more well rested lately, but also a lot busier too. But yeah, if you want to take a nap during the day, I personally feel more comfortable doing that at home than trying to find a spot at my office where I don't look like a slacker that's trying to sleep. Now, I mean, let's be honest, COVID has also had negative effects on people's work life balance. I think the biggest thing is the blurred boundaries that a lot of people have faced. Some people have found themselves working later than normal, like pre pandemic normal, because their desk is in the room and they don't have a designated cutoff time. Like, when you were going to the office, when you closed your laptop, it was because it was time to go, your work was finished, you had a bus to catch, you had a train to catch, you want to be traffic. Like it was a designated cutoff time. I'm assuming a lot of people weren't really opening up their laptops after they leave work when they get back home. Unless you're in that type of company or industry, I just don't see that happening. And then I think another negative thing is a lot of people had to edit or change around their home space in order to be an appropriate work environment. Some people, I mean, I personally did this. I repainted my room because I had a very childish room. And it was cute when I was in fifth, sixth, seventh grade, but it just looked crazy as a 22-year-old. So I repainted my room. So that was a lot of work. It was money, but it was good because I enjoyed that new space so much more than the green room. But some people had to spend money on desks, chairs, monitors, other office supplies, and that not only is that time, that's money. So yeah, that could negatively affect people's space. And also, like you have, like in my room, I don't mind it because I do like YouTube and podcasting. But some people, if you don't have like a side hustle outside of your job, which is totally okay, don't feel pressured to be a side hustler. It might be kind of annoying to have a desk in your room just taking up space, So that could be a negative thing as well. And so from this, you're probably like, okay, Ariane, like, thank you for sharing your experience and like, the positive and negatives of the remote impact on the work-life balance. But I mean, is work-life balance even really important? And my answer is yes. Immediately, yes. It's so important because I think it can help prevent or slow down burnout. And I think, let me not say burnout is inevitable, but I think everyone has or will experience burnout. Another reason why work life balance is important because it can actually increase productivity. Totally agree with that. I feel like when you have like clear, defined like boundaries and cutoff times, you know what I mean? You know what you need to get done during a certain time. I also think that work-life balance, and I'm sure all employers would agree with this, it helps keep employee morale high. A happy employee is a hardworking employee normally, and that's what all these companies care about. So we're not going to get into that. And I mean, I just want to say this: there's so much more to life than work. Like a lot of us work to eat, work to travel, work to pay our bills. You know what I mean? And even though I work 40 hours a week. The other, what, 160? I don't know how many leftover hours that is each day. But like, I don't want to think about work. I like my job. I like the people that I work with. Do not get me wrong with that. But like, when I close my laptop, it's about Ariana. It's about my family. It's about my friends. It's about the dog that I want. You know what I mean? So I just don't want my life to be consumed with work. And I really don't want that for you either. And again, I know some industries, some jobs are totally different. So please take that with a grain of salt. Part of the reason that I kind of felt inspired to do this episode was when I was logging off of work and I was like, oh, I'm logging off at 5. Cool. But then I'm like, is this kind of early? I saw other people on my team, they were still working. And I'm like, should I be working later? But I did. I checked off everything on my to-do list. I sent all the emails I needed to send. I responded to everything I needed to respond. I proofed what I needed to proof. But I kind of felt kind of weird hitting that shut down button. I feel like I shouldn't feel that way. I should be happy. You know what I mean? And I think I've definitely talked to my fair share of people about like their work-life balance experience. And I always feel kind of off or weird or not uncomfortable. I don't know. It's off. That's the word I'll use. But I feel off when I hear people talking about their crazy long work hours. And I'm like, oh my gosh. In my mind, I'm like, I could literally never do that. You're working 16 hours? That's crazy. I know this one person, when they were an intern, they were working like 60 hours a week. I'm like, how are you alive? And they got paid very, very well. But 60 hours a week? Oh my gosh, that's giving me a headache. Honestly, I work 9 to 5 p.m. And if it's a really busy day and I like literally have to get something done, which is very rare, barely happens. Maybe if I'm about to go out on PTO, I'll work a little bit later. Maybe I'll do 6. But I don't want to say never, but I don't think any time later than that, Now, if someone needed me to stick around and help with something or if there was an important meeting, I would totally do that. But that has not happened and I don't really see it happening right now. So I'm going to enjoy life how it is right now. But yeah, it is weird when I talk with people and they're like, oh yeah, I work 16 hours today or I work 8 to 8. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel bad saying, yeah, I work 9 to 5. But I think it's important to discuss like our experiences and stuff like that because you might think that it's normal for people to work 8 to 8 when in reality, maybe it's not. Or maybe I think it's normal to just do 9 to 5, but nobody else is doing 9 to 5 but me. There are people that are, but I'm just being dramatic. So, another question for you. Do you think that people in their 20s, so do you think we should prioritize work-life balance? Because, a lot of the times people say, yeah, your 20s are your time to grind, blah, 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 blah. And I totally agree that our 20s are our time to, like, make those big pivots, put in that work, chase your dreams. But you also have your 30s. You also have your 40s. Hopefully you have your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, your 80s. But in your 90s, you need to be chilling. I feel like a lot of time we put a lot of pressure on our 20s when normally we will have more time to get things done. So I can't tell you what you should or shouldn't do, but I personally am prioritizing work-life balance. And I feel like there's a lot of fun out there for me to experience in my 20s. And I don't want to have to like miss out on new connections or events or traveling because I'm working until 10 p.m. when I really don't have to. And also, like Drake said, you only live once. I love YOLO. I try to live by YOLO. That's like kind of been the vibe I've been trying to go for this year. But I believe that 1,000%. Enjoy life to its fullest. I don't want you to be like in your 40s regretting the fact that you didn't spend more time with your friends in your 20s because, you were doing this and that. Thank you guys for listening so far. The episode's not over yet, but I wanted to chat about some tips for improving your work-life balance. And like I said, there are times when my work-life balance isn't all that great. I would say 95% of the time. It's pretty consistent, but I think once I start adding in other things, or if I have a not a bad day, but like a non-productive day. Sometimes I feel like I need to stick around a little bit longer. But I wanted to give you guys some ideas on things that you can do to improve your work-life balance, whether you're just starting a job or if you've been at a job 2 years, 5 years, whatever. So one of the first things I would say is setting boundaries. And again, another disclaimer, it depends on the person and the job. If you work in a cutthroat environment, I mean, maybe you should take my advice with a grain of salt because I can't speak to your experience. I really think you should set boundaries. When you're on PTO, be on PTO. If you really have to respond to an email, go for it. But I think when you set that boundary and people know, oh, when Ariana's on PTO, she's not responding to any emails, they probably won't send you any emails or they won't send you any urgent emails. Or if they really, really need you, they'll text you. I've never had that experience, maybe when I'm more senior, but if it's urgent, they could text you and you can get back to them when you can. And then ask yourself, do you really need to work 14 hours today? Or is there something you can do to make your workday more productive or more timely? Like maybe let's say you're wasting a lot of time working on a timeline when instead of doing that, you could be doing this, and that. That takes up 3 hours a day. I recently saw this on TikTok. I personally don't do this, but they did it and they had a lot of positive comments. But some people don't have their work email or any work apps on their phone. I personally will, but I think that's okay because I have that boundary. But if you're someone that's interested in that, hey, go ahead, take them off your phone, or you can turn the notifications off. That's another option. And then another thing, very, very simple. When you're not working, when you've logged off for work, close your laptop. Maybe even, you know, put that laptop in a drawer, like get it out of your face. If you like keep feeling like you really need to work, put that laptop to the side. Another thing I would suggest is having a conversation with your manager. And of course, it depends on the manager and your relationship with them, probably. But just discuss with what you're dealing with, and if they can unload some of the projects on your plate, or provide some support, or readjust your responsibilities. Hey, some managers will do that just to keep you, good. Another tip is being intentional with your time. Today I actually worked with my phone in another room because it was just distracting me. Maybe you put your phone on Do Not Disturb. Maybe you put your phone in another room like me. Work on your priorities at work and then leave like your personal stuff for your personal time. Because I think when you start like blurring the lines, it could be a little hard. And then be intentional with your time outside of work as well. So, like, hang out with those friends, have those conversations that need to be had that you want to have, and do what you enjoy, which we'll get into in a second. But yeah, being intentional is very, very important. And then one of my favorite phrases: work smarter, not harder. And I'm not telling you to not work hard, not to, grind if that's what you want to do. But one thing I do, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this, is I multitask in meetings that don't require my full attention. And this helps cut out time that I would have spent otherwise, like after the meeting or at the end of the day. But if you can, if you're a multitasker person, if there's a meeting where you're in it, but you don't really like, it's not like a really important meeting or something that you're actively involved in or something that you need to like re-articulate to others, I totally suggest multitasking. I think it's a beautiful thing. Okay, these next two are kind of like fun things that I think everyone probably already has, but maybe you could work to grow a little bit more or to improve these things. But one, I would say find hobbies or things that you enjoy outside of work. Is it reading? Is it painting, cooking, exercising, building Legos, watching stand up comedy? Like, having things that you enjoy outside of work will help get you out of work mode and improve your mood. And then also related to that, I say figure out what helps you relieve stress. Now, for some people, those activities that I mentioned, like reading, painting, cooking, etc., helps them relieve stress. For other people, it doesn't. So maybe taking a bath works for you. Or some people like to drink a glass of wine. Maybe that helps you relieve stress. Maybe you nap. Maybe you scroll. Maybe you shouldn't scroll on social media. That might add more stress to what you're feeling. Maybe you like creating content. Try that. Or maybe call a loved one or a friend. You can get a massage. There's a variety of things that you can do to relieve stress. Everyone's stress relievers look different. And then last but certainly not least, and this is something I needed to do better with last year, was to use your time off. If you are a salaried employee or just an employee that has paid time off or paid days off, whatever you want to call it, use it. It's there for a reason. we can roll over, I think, like 7 days. So that's always cool because I get a lot of PTO every year. But I don't want to waste any days. Like the end of last year, I ended up taking PTO that I didn't really like, I don't want to say want, but didn't really need because I needed to get rid of like 3 days all in December outside of the days I already scheduled. So yeah, use your time off. That really helps with work-life balance. And a lot of times when I come back from trips, I feel so refreshed and like ready to like have my brain get clouded with information all over again. But yeah, you guys, I just want to leave you with this. Just don't let society make you think that you're not working hard enough just because you're not working until 9 p.m. We're young and we still deserve to have fun. And make your work life balance work for you. Like I said, my work life balance is going to look different from yours, and yours is going to look different from mine. And let's just embrace it, have a great time, and still try and figure out this weird, weird world of adulting. But all right, y'all, best of luck to you as you work on your work-life balance. I will talk to you all next week. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And don't forget that you're not the only person struggling. All of us, we all got a lot of things to work through. Trust me.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Graduated and Grown podcast. I appreciate you so, so much. If you haven't already, be sure to rate this podcast 5 stars and subscribe to the podcast so you can get a notification every single time a new episode is posted each week. Also, don't forget to follow our Instagram at Graduated and Grown so you can learn a little bit more about our guests, about our topics, get some resources, and provide some feedback and or episode ideas for the podcast. All right, y'all, it was your host, Ariane, and I'll talk with you all next time.